The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus said to his disciples, "A rich man had a steward who was reported to him for squandering his property. He summoned him and said, 'What is this I hear about you? Prepare a full account of your stewardship, because you can no longer be my steward.' The steward said to himself, 'What shall I do, now that my master is taking the position of steward away from me? I am not strong enough to dig, and I am ashamed to beg. I know what I shall do, so that when I am removed from the stewardship, they may welcome me into their homes.' He called in his master's debtors one by one. To the first he said, 'How much do you owe my master?' He replied, 100 measures of olive oil. He said to him, 'Here is your promissory note. Sit down and quickly write one for 50. Then to another he said, 'And you, how much do you owe?' He replied, 100 measures of wheat. He said to him, 'Here is your promissory note. Write one for 80. And the master commended that dishonest steward for acting prudently. For the children of this world are more prudent in dealing with their own generation than the children of light.'" The Gospel of the Lord. As you've noticed, Jacob is our server today. I think we might as well formalize that a little bit. Instead of just having people up here in lay clothes, have someone vested in a calfskin surplice. I think it's a great thing for Jacob to be doing that. The reading today, I was really struck by this line. St. Paul, in his letter to the Philippians, he says, "Our citizenship is in heaven." Our citizenship is in heaven. Obviously, it's a relevant line of Scripture in the midst of this chaotic and corrupt election that we are going through right now. I think this is a striking line. Our citizenship is in heaven. I wonder if you've ever thought about just how impactful that reality is. I remember a couple of years ago, I was watching a debate between Christopher Hitchens and a cardinal, the Catholic Church, and the question was, is the Catholic Church a helpful force in the world or a damaging force in the world? And unfortunately, the cardinal was not a very good debater and basically got dominated by Christopher Hitchens. But I thought that was an interesting question. Is the Catholic Church a force for the good? I think sometimes we underestimate just how impactful church has been on the world. One of the things you hear people say sometimes about Christians is they say, "Well, I have this atheist friend who is a better Christian than most Christians I know." What exactly does that mean? Imagine what the world would be like without the church. Think about all of the graces that Christ pours through the world through the means of the sacraments. Even many people who have left the church, they've been baptized. And there's a sacramental power that's still at work in them. Or think about what the world would be like if we didn't have the Christian virtues, charity, mercy. If we didn't have such a great respect for our minds, recognizing that insofar as we use our minds, we are participating in the very thought of God. Imagine how chaotic our world would be if it were not for the church. And that's something good for us to reflect on. It's good for us to remember that in this world, we literally are in the realm of the devil. The church is on a combat mission to overcome his kingdom. And if it were not for the church, where would the world be? We as Christians and as Catholics have an unimaginable potential influence on the world. It's important for us to remember that, especially in the midst of elections and politics. Obviously, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying we shouldn't care about politics or anything like that. We have a duty to try to better our world and to influence our culture. But we have much more influence by who we are and how we live than by a vote that we cast. How much do we care about the election? How much has it consumed us? We are not citizens of this world. We're citizens of heaven. I wanted to read you guys a quote that I came across a couple of months ago. It's from a man named Socrates. You guys heard of Socrates? Socrates was this philosopher before the time of Jesus, and he was known for making waves in the city of Athens because they accused him of being an atheist. Basically, what he was doing was he was ripping apart the traditional Greek values. He was saying that the emperors of the kingdoms and the rulers were not divine, and so therefore we don't owe obedience to them. We don't owe obedience to them when they're unjust. He was also critical of the worship of the pagan gods of the city, arguing that we should overcome those superstitions and live in accord with reason. And Socrates, in a certain sense, he was also kind of mystical. I think what I'm talking about today, he saw even before the church ever arrived. Even in his pagan day, he saw this truth that, in a certain sense, we shouldn't be too wrapped up in the affairs of this world. And he actually ended up being a martyr for it. They put him to death. And many people tried to release him from prison. They tried to help him escape, and he refused because he didn't think that it was just. Here's a quote from him that he said as he was preparing for his death. I think this is so profound. Listen to this. In heaven there is a pattern of the ideal city, which he who desires may behold. And in beholding that heavenly city, he may set his own house in order. The man who sees this city will live after the manner of that city, having nothing to do with any other. Isn't that beautiful? In heaven there is a pattern of the heavenly city, which all of us may behold and live in accord with that city. No matter what happens in any election or in our country, we know that at the end of the day, our citizenship is not of this world. Our citizenship is of the heavenly city. Beautiful. It should give us some peace and comfort in this time.